Hi folks, welcome to today's episode of Tableau in 2 minutes. We're going to do something a little bit different today, and we're going to work through how to go about creating a dashboard, how you might walk through that from scratch, including all of my thoughts and other random things that you may or may not want to hear. What we're going to do is we're going to use the Makeover Monday dataset. I haven't done much aside from familiarize myself with the data set up to this point, but I'm going to go through how I would go about creating a dashboard to demonstrate what the data is showing us, what the data is looking at. So the first thing obviously is to familiarize yourself a little bit with the data. This is this week's data set, trains versus planes. What's the real cost of travel? And we have some data showing how the cost varies for a plane versus for a train for a number of popular routes in Europe, along with some visualizations in the article, which are actually quite helpful. But I think we could do better. I think we could do something that's a bit more of a one-pager demonstrating what's happening with this data. And the premise is that even though a plane may appear to be cheaper, in terms of time and in terms of carbon emissions, it may not actually be cheaper. So why don't we go ahead and you can download the data from the GitHub page here. I'm using this flights versus trains CSV, and that is what I have imported into Tableau. And let's go ahead and start exploring. So the first thing I want to do is I'm just going to click on sheet 1 here. And the first thing I think we should look at is probably the travel time, because I think that's going to be the most interesting piece. So let's look at the travel time for each of these routes. I'm going to put mode in there too. And then we're going to take a look at the raw travel time. And then, you know what, let's go ahead and make this a color. So I just want to see what the difference is. Now, this is the travel time in minutes. It looks pretty clear that typically the advertised travel time is significantly cheaper or significantly shorter if you travel on a plane, which makes sense because a plane travels much slower than a car. But I think we may want to... Well, actually, there's a couple of other things we want to do here. I think we may want to normalize that. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that we're only looking at one particular... The weeks ahead is actually going to be a dimension, so I'm going to move that up to the dimensions. I'm also going to filter it so that we only have 1 week ahead, because I suspect that, there we go, that's much better. Makes a lot more sense. So it's like, oh, we're getting some large travel times there between some places that are pretty close together. So it looks like, as you can see, right, on average for a plane, these probably take like 60 to 80 minutes. Travel time for a train is significantly longer. Especially for a few of these, but obviously there's some lost time in terms of going to the airport versus going to the train station, which I think is mentioned in the article, and I think that's a good thing. So what we'll do, so we probably want to add a little bit to this plane time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust this. We're going to create a calculated field, just adjusted travel time. And then we're going to say if the mode equals plane, I'm going to add then raw travel time plus how long do we think it takes to get to the airport? Let's say, I think they used 3 hours in the article. I would say that's probably about right. So we'd be adding 180 minutes. 180 minutes to the travel time for a train. Or else we can just use an else. We just want to use the raw travel time. So what this is going to do is this is going to add 180 minutes to the raw travel time if the mode is a train. Otherwise it's, if the mode is a plane. Otherwise it's just going to leave it. So let's go ahead and take that adjusted travel time and drag it into our visualization in place of this. There we go. See, that's a little bit more interesting, right? Because there we are now looking at a situation where some of these are actually longer on a plane when you include the time it takes to go to the airport, presumably on both ends, and then obviously the time it takes to get out and collect your bags and whatever on the other side. So that's definitely interesting. That's definitely interesting. So how might we want to put this on a dashboard? I guess that's the next question. I'm sort of sketching out in my head what we might want this to look like. I do like this way of looking at it, but I'm wondering if there's a better way, if we can just play around. Maybe. No, I'm not so keen on that. No, I'm not so keen on that either. Oops, we've lost one. There we go. Bring that back. Let's just take this mode, stick it right here. See, that sort of makes sense, but then we're not comparing them together, are we? No, that's not really all that helpful. Alright, well, maybe I guess we had it set up the best way to start with. So, let's go ahead and do this. I'm going to flip these around. Oh, that's a bit more comfortable to look at, isn't it? So now we can see roughly the difference in terms of the plane, plus the time it takes to get to the airport for some of these routes. I'm going to go ahead and we're going to sort this. Descending by the adjusted travel time. There we go. So now you can see we have the routes that take the longest up at the top, on average take the longest, versus the ones that are shortest down at the bottom. I sort of like the way that came out. If we're going to display this on a dashboard, probably want to make these a little bit bigger. Just going to tweak this down. There we go. Looking a bit better. So that's interesting. Now let's take a look at what the difference in ticket price is for those two. So, take ticket price, drag it down here. Again, I just want to make sure we're not going, I only want to make sure we're looking at 1 week in this particular case. We'll just look 1 week out. Oops. Mode, so typically, and then we're going to take the mode, I'm going to put it on color again to make it clearer. So typically, obviously a train is less expensive. That's probably a good thing. Let's take the route, drag that out. This is one particular route in Munich to Budapest. It's really skewing those plane numbers. A lot of times the plane's pretty even, sometimes even cheaper than the train, but this route is really skewing this. Ticket prices are in euros, by the way, in this data. So that's how much it would cost us for each of these routes. Let's see, I kind of want to compare ticket price to travel time, so let's go ahead and do that. Ticket price versus, oh, we want adjusted travel time. Let's see, and then we're going to use the route. And the mode. Oops. There we go. And we're going to make the mode colored again. So you can see that when the mode is a train, and we'll highlight these, there's sort of two ticket price levels. There's a couple that are pretty cheap. Whereas for a plane, it doesn't seem to vary much. The ticket price doesn't seem to vary much based on the journey time. Well, let's look weeks ahead. Probably want to add that one out there too. Yeah, similar sort of story, right? So it hasn't necessarily changed much based on how far out you book, particularly for a train. Let's do the same. I want to look at weeks ahead too. I know there was some, we showed some data on that. And then let's take the route. And then we want to do the ticket price. 2 weeks ahead. Sort of, we want to read right to left. It's one of the interesting things that Tableau does when you look at weeks out data, right? So this is 1 week out. This is 6 weeks out. We kind of want to look at these in the other direction. So whenever you look at something like weeks ahead, sometimes you have to sort it in the opposite direction for it to make sense. There we go. So now what we see is that for the vast majority of these routes, obviously the ticket price is increasing as we get closer to arrival. So that makes sense. No, I don't like the scatter plot. I'm going to get rid of that. You see that the travel time sort of varies between the two of them when you take into account how long it takes to get to the airport. Oh, sorry, this is the price, right? The price varies between the two typically takes longer on a train than it does on a plane, even when you take into account the fact that it might take another 3 hours to get to the airport and back versus the train station being right in the heart of many of these cities. So some interesting findings. How are we going to display these on a dashboard? I'm liking the bars. Maybe not in this case. Maybe we can turn this into a line graph. And then we probably put the mode on the color shelf there. There we go. That looks a lot better. So now we're comparing the ticket price and how far out you book. So if somebody wanted to pick or understand the most effective mode of travel from one place to another based on optimizing their ticket price and their journey time, we'd probably want to build out something that allowed them to look at those two things together. Now, I'm just looking at this. It seems like the best time to buy is always earlier. Right? Typically the price is either flat or it looks like it's going up as we get closer to arrival. There's none of them that really decline. I guess this one, Paris to Barcelona, there's a little bit of a dip in there, but not significantly. So for the plane, what is interesting is that the train generally goes up a bit more than the plane as we get close to arrival, but that's all just some sort of thinking pieces. Notice one of the things as I've gone through this, I haven't really changed anything away from the default color scheme. While I'm playing around and things like this, I typically like to just leave it with the default color scheme. So I got a lot of blue and orange, in my sample workbooks in terms of what I'm trying to put together there. Might be interesting to map these visualization where we can map the routes. Right now we don't have the we don't have that, although I guess we could. We don't have the maps in the we don't have mapping things in, but I think we can break these out. Let's try doing this. So starting city. Actually, I'm gonna go ahead and create just a new visualization here, and you'll see why in just a second. So equals. I'm going to use the left function for the route, and then the number of characters. We're going to use the find. The string we want to use is route. Whoops. And then the substring is going to be that dash that's between the two of them. I close that out. Now I'm going to have to adjust that slightly, but let's go ahead and just add this to the rows. And what I'm doing is I'm trying to find this left-hand city, and then we're going to set that up to be, see if we can set it to be a geographic area. What I've done is I've just taken the left portion of that. I found the dash, and then I just want to adjust this slightly so that we get rid of the dash. There we go. And then we're going to do ending city. So, okay. Let's do destination city. Destination sounds much better than ending city, doesn't it? So in this case, we're going to go right. And then we want the string is going to be the route. Number of characters from the right hand side we want is going to be the length of the string. So we want to go all the way to the end, and then we want to subtract where we find that dash. So let's find the dash. Just apply that. Again, we're going to drag it out here. I think I'm going to have missed one. Nope, that worked out pretty well. I will take that Excellent. Okay, so now we have the destination city and the starting city. I'm going to turn these into... We'll see if this works. This may not work. We might have to do a bit more to this in order to get it to work, but we'll see if we can try and change these into a city. And then let's add starting city to a map. Oh, it's thinking. It's thinking. Well, we've got a map. Unfortunately. Ah, well. Well, starting city's Munich. That's fascinating. That must be Munich, North Dakota. Well, what do you know? I didn't know there was one there. Alright, well, I guess that was pointless, but now you know how to change a destination. Now you know how to pull things out of strings. That was interesting. Let's go ahead and get rid of that. I think we can do it without looking at the route there. But let's go ahead and I'm just going to create a dashboard here, and we'll start playing around with some things that might work. Let's look at just a generic desktop browser. Oops, here's all of our... Alright, so this is by time, planes and trains. What if we aggregate these? I think that's probably a sensible thing to do, right? Let's just trying to think. Okay, so this is so these are interesting, having each route displayed individually. Well, why don't we do this? Let's just aggregate the train and plane. Oh, sorry, let's get rid of the route from this. So in general, trains are slightly cheaper when we aggregate them all together. And they take slightly longer. So if we traveled all of these routes on a train, it would take us 2009 minutes. If we traveled them all on a plane individually without flying from one airport to the other, but actually doing something in the city between times, it would take us about 1600 minutes. So with those two, this is travel time. Should really rename my sheets for it to make sense for this, shouldn't I? So why don't I go ahead and do that? This is ticket price. There we go. Sheet 1 is travel time. Sheet 2, ticket price. Doesn't matter, I want my tickets, and that's right. This is price by weeks out. It's just a testing sheet. I'll just get rid of that. There we go. Alright, so ticket price and travel time by transportation mode there. Let's take a look at our price by weeks out. Whoops! Kind of all went wrong. So notice we haven't got into the carbon emissions portion of this yet. That would potentially be something that we would want to add to the cost. The social cost of carbon is something we could actually add in to each of these. Let's sit tight on that for a second. Actually set to use this as a filter. Right, now we can look at each. What's the ticket price trend versus the travel time trend for each of these routes? Listen, oops, probably don't want to do that too much. What I want to adjust is this one. There we go. So now we have a way of just exploring travel time and ticket price, right? It seems to be much more expensive for a train, and a train takes longer when you travel from London to Marseille, so probably not the smartest way to do that. Milan, we have a bit of a... London to Amsterdam, we have a bit of a different story, where the train price tends to be higher, although it's actually quite close the beginning, and really the train time is actually just as quick as the aeroplane. Berlin and Warsaw we can explore like that. This is obviously, I guess this is a ticket price 1 week out, right? So we should really just go back to this sheet. I'm going to change this to the average. To remove this weeks ahead filter. There we go. I'm going to change this too. If I change this to the average and then we remove the weeks ahead filter, it actually shouldn't matter what the thing is, because the travel time is not going to change within the data set, so that's okay. We can always leave that. That's a much better way of doing it. Should have done it that way in the first place. Berlin, Warsaw. So for our mode of transportation, the average ticket price for a plane is 176 versus 36 for a train, but the train takes significantly longer, about 2 hours longer. So depending on what your time's worth, might want to take a plane. I guess we can figure out the value of this this gap between the two, couldn't we? If we put a number on people's time, that might be an interesting way to take this. Let's see. So I sort of like what we've done here. Might be interesting if we did. You could do something with custom icons on these two as well. To put a plane icon in there, put a train icon in there. That would certainly be an interesting way of doing it. Right now, so what are we missing? Let's think through this. This doesn't really, it's a nice collection of pictures, right? It's doing some interesting stuff. We've got some things interacting with one another, but it's not really telling us, in my opinion at least, it's not really telling us anything, even though I'm clicking around and learning things. So really the premise was that flying is not always quicker than the train, and that it's not always cheaper than the train. So we've made the adjustments to travel time. I think maybe what we need to do actually is take this, let's go to this travel time graph. I'm going to change this around completely. I'm actually going to put the route in there too. Let's move this up here. No, that's not very helpful. We went through this before, didn't we? Oh, what did I decide was the best way of doing it? Probably... Whoops, that's not gone well. There we go. Oh, that's come out pretty ugly this time, hasn't it? Oh, here's a good idea. What we can do, I'm just going to take this and put it on a label. Bum, 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 bum. We're going to remove the color. Don't want the color in my table. This is a table. Tables aren't designed for colors. And then what we can do, we can create a table calculation that is the difference. And if we create a table calculation that shows us the difference, we can create... What do you think people's time is worth per hour? How many euros? Should we say 20 euros an hour? Sounds like a good estimate to me. So what we've done essentially is we've said how much faster or slower the train is. In this case, how much slower, right? So it's a lot slower on this route, 118 minutes slower. And then it's 23 minutes quicker on this particular route. So if we said that somebody's time was worth $20, 20 euros rather, we could say be this times, I'm going about this the wrong way. All right, let me not do that. There we go. And then we'll go adjusted travel time, and then we'll go, oh, I don't even know what to call it. Probably be opportunity cost, wouldn't it? Opportunity cost. This is the amount of time it costs you because you're traveling, you can't do anything else, and particularly if you're on an airplane, you can't access the internet, so you're basically dead in the water. And we'll call that 20 euros. There we go. Let's take opportunity cost. This is the time you spend traveling. I want to average that so we don't end up with different values. And then we want to take the difference. Oh my goodness, we don't want to do that. We actually want to multiply it by 20 divided by 60. Because we're looking at it in minutes. So 20 divided by 60. So that will be how much money I make per minute. I wish it was 20 bucks per minute. All right, so this is then going to be the so this is the amount of money essentially that we would save or gain between these two things. So that's the cost in time, the time, money, cost of us taking each of those things. Let's do this. And let's take this and then compare it to how much we pay for a ticket. That is what I was looking to do. So we'll take ticket price and opportunity cost. Interesting. Oh, it ended up being quite close together. I was not expecting that at all. And then let's take our route. Oh, sorry, our mode and our route. Add those. And in this case, so let's take the route. Sorry, let's use measure names on the color. I like measure names in both places. There we go. It's not very helpful as we use color elsewhere for mode. So let's go ahead and put mode on there. And here's what this is telling us, or at least what I am trying to get it to tell us. If our cost, right, the opportunity cost for the journey, which is the amount of money we could have made on that journey had we done it quicker, relative to the ticket price. So in this case, ticket price is $5.62, the opportunity cost is $4.44. Let me think this through. We probably want to subtract those, don't we? So the ticket price, do we want to add them? Because you'd have to pay the money. Yeah, we want to add them. Ticket plus travel time cost. It's ticket price plus the opportunity cost. Apply. Okay. Get rid of that. There we go. All right, now we're getting somewhere interesting. So what we're looking at now is for each of these routes, I have to pay both the price of the ticket and I have to pay some opportunity cost for me deciding to take that mode of transport, right? So in this case, I'm just going to expand this out so we can read some of these things. This is telling me that the total cost for me to both take a plane from Berlin to Warsaw is significantly higher than the total cost for me to take a train, because the ticket time plus the travel cost is less for the train than it is for the plane. For London to Amsterdam, it's actually the opposite. For London to Marseille, it's the opposite. So that's interesting. So now we've got a way of combining both the ticket price and the adjusted travel time. In some of these cases, we could probably see whether that's because the ticket price is really high. Okay, let's get rid of that. I don't like you anymore. I don't like you anymore either. Right, this is working. So let's look at this. I haven't given it a name. It's not very good of me. So we'll take this. That's pretty ugly. Because I want it to be long and thin. That's made it worse. I want to just put it up there. Oh, there we go. That looks better. All right, all right. Oh, there we go. There we go. There we go. That makes more sense. Okay. So this, we're going to call this the total cost of travel. So if I were looking to truly optimize my travel time, or my travel dollar rather, then we would have to look at this total price for a plane versus a train, and I would want to take whichever one is cheaper. Now in some cases, it's going to be a bit more challenging than others. And then we can look at then we can look at these two separately. So, goodness knows what's going on with this one. Just going to clear it, fix it. We want travel time on this one. So we want that to be our rows. Then we want the mode. Whoops. We want the mode, and we also want the mode to be the color. There we go. So dashboard. I'm going to put these two together because I'd like them to be together. So I'm going to use this layout container. I'm going to take travel time, and then ticket price, drop it in there. We're going to set this to be used as a filter. I'm going to go in here. We're going to create a slightly bigger version of this. Right, so without a particularly interesting stated goal, what I've gone ahead and done is I've created a way for us to explore the total cost of travel. So that's the cost of travel both for the opportunity cost of travel, as it were, right? How much money could I have made while I was traveling, and also how much time did I have to pay? And then we can see over on the left-hand side, you can see the breakdown of how that breaks out for each of these things. So we could select Berlin to Warsaw for all of these routes, right? So if we look at this, you can see that for Berlin to Warsaw, it's significantly cheaper for me to take the train, because even though the train is going to take a lot longer, I think we have an issue. We have sum up there. What we really want is average. There we go. Even though the train's going to take a lot longer, there we go. Right, third time lucky. Even though the train is going to take longer, in this case it's going to take, what's that? About 120 minutes longer. Maybe not quite. Including travel time to the airport, the plane is enormously expensive. So that difference in time is not worth the extra cost of the ticket. From London to Amsterdam, the opposite's true. The train's more expensive because, again, the train ticket costs so much more that even though the train is a bit quicker than the plane, when we factor in the airport travel time, it doesn't make that much of a difference. Let's break some other ones in here. London to Marseille. Oh, it's definitely the plane. Look at that. Train travel time is higher and the ticket cost is higher. Munich to Budapest. The plane's more expensive because the ticket's so much more expensive. Paris to Barcelona. Again, train's both more expensive and takes longer. Zurich to Milan. The opposite's true. The plane is both more expensive and it takes longer. So interesting insights there if you were trying to optimize where you would want to buy your ticket. We haven't really taken into account how many days before arrival you would want to do it. But the question is, even though a plane seems more convenient, this does demonstrate that sometimes it actually might be cheaper to take the train. And you can explore that. We probably do need a title though. I can't leave you without a title. That'd be terrible. So let's go up in here. Time trains versus planes. Oof. We are going to want to make that bigger. Much bigger. That bigger? Or that bigger? I think that bigger. Excellent. Nice. I'm probably going to make this a bit smaller. Because what I'm going to do, a bit smaller. Make this one a bit smaller too. So we're going to take this. So I'm going to do a couple of things here to rearrange this, because the question we're now answered, right? We have this dashboard where we can explore these things. How does a user know now to explore these things? So one of the first things is that users typically read from left to right. So this total cost of travel, which is really our centerpiece, right? We want to put that over on the left-hand side. So let's take this, drop it over there for a second. Take this, put this on the left-hand side. And we'll stick that in there. Total ticket plus travel time cost. That's just the name of the. It's just the name of the field. Oh, there we go. So we want to change that to something that makes a bit more sense, like total cost. We do want to give it some units. So let's go ahead and go back here. Select the format on that. Whoops, I'm going to give our currency, prefix and suffix. Oh no! We're going to have to pretend it's in dollars because I don't have a euro key. What a disaster, I did not see that coming. Oh well, never mind. We'll get rid of the, I apologize to anybody watching this in Europe. I'm sure you're quite mad at me at the moment, but that's fine. It's fine. We're going to do the same over here, right? Whoops, I don't want to use that as a filter. I'll change that in a second. We want to format this. We want to set it to currency. Get rid of the decimals. Travel time. Dashboard. Don't use as a filter. Uh-oh. I'm going to fit this, fit width. I'm going to set this to fit width as well, so when I mess around with things, it doesn't break. Perfect. All right, so there's a couple of things that we might want to clean up here. The first thing is we're probably going to want to put a paragraph somewhere that explains what we're looking at, along with the premise. Now, we haven't gone into the carbon piece yet, and we're not going to. I think this dashboard is enough. But that's probably, well, is it part of the total cost of travel? See, that is the question. I think it is part of the total cost of travel. Oof. Oof, we're going to need to define some terms. It's total cost of travel. Well, let's put in paragraph of explanation. I think there's a spelling error in there. There we go. So we'll have this paragraph of explanation. Blah. And I'm just going to create some text in here so that, yeah, there we go. That's nice. All right, now second paragraph. There we go. So goodness knows how much space it's going to take me to explain this. I'm a wordy fellow, so that's probably not going to be enough. But let's try that. Okay. Oh dear. I've put in too many. Just chop that off a bit. Oh dear, still too many. Still too many. When in doubt, make the text smaller. There we go. All right. So we've got some explanations in there. We're going to have to define some terms. So I'm going to have to put in a text box up here. Give us place to define our terms. What are the terms we need to define? That's the question. The first one is, what is the total cost? Total cost is blah, blah, blah. Travel time is blah, blah, blah. And then ticket price. Ticket price. So let's think about this. Total cost is the cost of the ticket plus the opportunity cost of the time spent traveling at a rate of 20 euros per hour. Travel time is the time travel time in minutes from destination to from start to destination, including for plane travel, the number of minutes spent going to and from the airport. Ticket price is the average price in euros of tickets for each route over the 6 weeks prior to departure. Alright, let's probably could do some refinement there, but let's go ahead and expand that out, see how much space it takes up. Oh, too much space. What a shocker. Too much space. What a shocker. 8. There we go. Alright, beautiful. Actually, not beautiful. It's still ugly as sin, but it's fine. Let's make this smaller. See, when in doubt, squeeze, squeeze, breathe in, visualizations. I guess we can move this one down too. Actually, you know what we can do to make this one smaller? So I'm going to change this because I need a bit more space. I would like to make this bigger and this bigger so it looks a bit more representative. Let us do this. Let us take this. We're going to add it as a label. Whoops. Add it as a label. I'm going to have to format it again. I should have set the default formatting when I started and I wouldn't have to do this. Currency. There we go. Oops. And then because we have the numbers on there, I don't need this axis anymore. Bye-bye. There we go. You know what, while we're in here, let's get rid of some borders, shall we? Nope. 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 Rows. Axis ticks. Nope. Columns. Nope. Nope. There we go. Still probably missing some. I don't want it in the grand total. I don't care about that. Yeah, let's just get rid of all the lines. Oh, and a column divider over there. Nope. I want to get rid of you. Actually, you know what? I like the row divider. There we go. That makes a bit more sense. Okay, so now we've cleaned that up a bit. We can actually make this a bit smaller, which means I can make this a bit bigger, and we don't have to squeeze everything quite as much. Alright, here we have a place for our conclusion. You know, I'm going to put the conclusion afterwards because I think conclusions should go at the end. So let's move this up. Right here. Whoa! Oh, no, that doesn't make any sense. No. Don't like that alignment at all. Let's move this back. There we go. So it's not always cheaper to take the plane. Even though flights often seem to take less time, it's not always cheaper or faster to take the plane. Sometimes, or I guess when you take into account opportunity cost of both the time spent traveling to and from the airport as well as the time spent. We take into account the opportunity cost of both the time spent traveling and the time spent traveling to and from the airport as well as the opportunity cost of the additional time on the train and compare them. You will find that for some routes it's cheaper to take the train than the plane. It's sometimes cheaper to take the option to take with the most expensive ticket, even though... No, you know what? Let's get rid of that. Don't like that. So you find it somewhere it's stupid, take the train down the plane, click on a route on the left to explore the different ticket and travel times on the right. That is an adequate explanation. It's not a particularly good one, but I don't have a particularly large amount of time to wordsmith that. So we shall leave that right there. Define terms, define our terms. Definition of terms. I'm going to make that a little bit bigger. I'm also going to bold each of the terms. Oh goodness. Stop being awkward, Tableau. Behave like a word processor. There we go. Alright. So now we've bolded those out. I'm going to expand this out so that we get... I'm aiming for 1 line per item. Am I going to get 1 line per item? Oh, there we go. Look at that. So definition of terms. Now I'm not super keen on having my definition of terms up there, actually. Actually, I want this up there. My explanation up there. I have my definition of terms over here. Because the first thing, so this is this sort of circular thing. I want people read from left to right. So the focus of this is going to be on the analysis, this paragraph of conclusion. That's the first thing I want people to see. Then we sort of want them to understand how to define their terms. And then look at the total cost of travel relative to the ticket price and the ticket time. We can actually make those a little bigger. Let's make this a bit smaller too. Let's have a more provocative title. So, is it always cheaper? Is it always cheaper to fly? There we go. Bold that. Maybe make it a little bit bigger. 28. I like that question. That's a good question. I'm fond of that question. There we go. Oh, yes. So now we have over here on the right. It's not showing me the thing. It's probably all. I'll make it 9. There we go. These definitions of terms, we're going to have to work on that a little bit in a second. There we go. All right. So now we have a title. We have our paragraph of explanation. Definition of terms. Definition of terms is a bit bigger. I'm going to put. Actually, I'm just going to add a line between each of these to help define that a bit better. But we have a bit more space up here now. Alignment, yeah, that's fine. Oh, vertical, there we go. That's what I want to do. Excellent. I apologize, my wife is texting me and apparently getting very upset. And anyway, so that about defines our dashboard. Now, we've gone from, so just to review while I make the couple of finishing touches here. We've really gone from having no sense of what's going on with the data to a complete dashboard where we're exploring a particular aspect of the data in just a few minutes. Really just by asking questions, thinking through things, as well as explaining how we're doing things and coming up with an interesting story that we can then drive to a conclusion. So I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to post this up. If you have any questions, then obviously post them in the comments. If you'd like to subscribe to the channel, please go ahead and hit subscribe. We have a bunch of other Tableau videos and things like that. And I'll leave a cost to the data set to make over Monday and to the workbook itself in the video description. And hopefully you'll stick around and check out some of our other Tableau in 2 minutes videos. I will see you then.